Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. This is another book that must be a book. I'm always looking for more of these exciting formless experiments in literature, especially these days with things being able to, like, I could go pick up a Stephen King novel digitally. There's no reason for me to own the physical book. I like books that justify themselves physically. So this is S by J.J. Abrams, yeah, the filmmaker, and Doug Dorst. It comes in, when you get it, I don't really like books that come in cases. There's no reason for that for me, but it comes with this sticker over it, and you get what is supposedly, in this one it makes sense. This is not the book S by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. This is a fake book, but it's presented as a real book. The Ship of Theseus by V.M. Straka. It has a like library label on it, so this is supposedly a copy from Winged Shoes Press of a book that has been passed back and forth. It's like you're finding this book that has been passed back and forth between two characters at a library, and the production on this is one of the craziest pieces of book production. I don't know how they made this book, and I don't remember what I paid for this. I don't think it was very much. I think it was like $40 maybe at the most. But it looks like an old book. The pages are all aged, and then you'll see there's a number of documents that are not part of the book that are stuffed into the book. I don't know how they did this. I'm assuming J.J. Abrams just has enough money and did this as a passion project that he didn't care if it made money or not. I was very skeptical about this book, as much as I liked the premise and I liked the production of it. Like, I don't like J.J. Abrams stuff. I feel like his stuff is kind of famous for being convoluted and full of mystery and never paying that off. I was very worried about that. Never heard of Doug Dorst. Can't find anything about him on the internet. When I read about this book, people assume that even Doug Dorst might just be a fake name that got made up for this book, that supposedly J.J. Abrams really likes this guy's writing and thought he'd be a good collaborator, but people are skeptical about that. So anyways, there's a lot going on in this book. The Ship of Theseus itself by V.M. Straka is a weird, obviously it's focused on the issue of identity. Here's some other books supposedly written by V.M. Straka. It's a fake book. These are all fake books, but it's about this character S who wakes up, he doesn't remember anything about his life, and then he gets sent on these, he just keeps waking up on this series of weird missions, and he's on this ship with like these zombie people, and I don't know, that like that's the first thing where this book starts to, in terms of the story, fall apart for me. Is The Ship of Theseus by V.M. Straka itself is not a particularly good book. It's like, if it didn't have all this extra stuff in it, I don't think anyone would like it. So I don't know. It's full of weird, surreal mystery that doesn't really add up to anything. It's obviously supposed to be an exploration of the concept of identity if you're referencing the Ship of Theseus, but I don't think it's very philosophically rich, that being a topic that I spend a lot of time obsessing about. Okay, so that's the Ship of Theseus itself, and I'll say if that was its own book, I would say it's garbage book. No one would care about it. Supposedly, though, V.M. Straka and the Ship of Theseus are such a good artist, such a good author, and the book is so compelling, which it's not, that there's these notes on the side between a graduate student, Eric, and an undergraduate student, Jen, who are attending Pollard State University. And this is this artifact here that I'm holding, this fake artifact, is supposedly a book from the library. And these two characters, Jen and Eric, have been passing the book back and forth. And so there's a really convoluted timeline of who made notes when. Apparently this was just Eric's copy for a long time. that he stole from his high school library, and then he's been stashing it. I don't know. It gets confusing. But anyways, this was the more compelling story to me, was the story of these two kids talking back and forth. So a lot of the notes are just his notes that he made when he initially got obsessed with the book, and then he becomes a graduate student studying V.M. Straka, and trying to the big mystery, the real mystery of the book is, who is V.M. Straka? Is there a real V.M. Straka, or was V.M. Straka a pseudonym, or maybe even a pseudonym for a group of authors? And there's supposedly a history of academics who have different ideas, competing ideas about this. And Eric and Jen are kind of, through passing the book back and forth and making the notes, finding the real answer to that, and like a real world history of revolutionary writers. It's just a really confusing story, but it's kind of interesting, the format. So it's pretty romantic, like this idea of people passing the book back and forth. But there's just, I don't know, like, I don't know if I'm just not smart enough, or I just feel like J.J. Abrams stuff is like fake veils of, you're not smart enough to understand it, so keep digging. But it's really not that good. Like the timeline's all jacked up. Like they're trying so hard to make what's going on in here relate to the actual book itself, that like it doesn't feel natural. The conversation between them and the timeline between them doesn't feel natural. So all of this, what looks like I've written all over my book, this is printed on there. And that's done so well. It looks like someone wrote on here with pencil. It looks like there's different pens. The different pen colors, like you can tell they're two handwriting apart, but the different pen colors kind of indicate the different timelines. So people online obsessively, try and sort out the timeline here, but it just feels so artificial. In terms of production, there's all kinds of cool stuff like this, where in unraveling the mystery and in passing this book back and forth to each other, Eric and Jen start also stuffing documents in the book that help them. So here's like a Pollard State University. And these things look so legit. And just even from a production standpoint, I can't imagine printing all of these and then how in the world, because they're not randomly stuffed in. They're stuffed in places that are relevant to the dialogue here and supposedly thematically relevant to the book, but it's pretty weak. The connection is pretty weak. But just in terms of production, like, did you have a machine do this? Did people hand go do this? Like, I don't know how they made this thing. So as weak as the story is, I feel like as a visual artifact and an artifact of what bookmaking could be, like there's a whole school newspaper. Super legit. They're all on different types of paper. There's like a napkin in here somewhere that's like printed. It's printed on a napkin. I don't know how, from a production standpoint, this was made. So even though I absolutely, like, I had to force myself to finish reading this book in terms of my frustration with the main story being boring. These note papers with the smudged ink and all that's so spot on. But the main story was so damn boring. Postcard, and this is like real cardstock paper, stamps all over it. The main story. So these are more cool. Like photograph, it's on glossy photo paper with the stuff on the back. Manufactured by a company that's in the book. Another postcard. We'll flip through this stuff because this is interesting stuff. More postcards. Postcard with deckled edge because that's not enough. Like handwritten stuff on stained yellow paper, lined paper. And this is like real. It's not printed. Like this is real paper that's then been manipulated. Another deckled edge because it's not enough. Oh no, this is an old photograph. It's not enough to just have postcards. You got to have the deckled edges. like Christmas card, greeting card with like, how did they cut this out and like fake the burn on it? I don't know, man. I don't know how in the hell they produced this book. Here's the napkin, and this is a real floppy napkin. So in terms of production, I cannot think of, and I think this just has to take someone who's got money to throw away, because I don't know how you print a book like this and make it only $40 or whatever. And then there's like a little decoder ring, and it's an astonishing piece of production. The story is so boring. I had to force myself through it. The actual Ship of Theseus, so it's not at all convincing that someone would get obsessed with this and go into graduate studies about it. The story of the two kids on the side is pretty compelling, but the timeline doesn't make sense. The fact that the topics line up the way they do, the story the story unfolds too linearly. Like, the things that they're talking about in the front of the book kind of unfold linearly towards the back of the book for the most part. There's a little jumble, but I feel like if two people were really reading and rereading and obsessing about and going back and making notes, like, the beginning of the story might be in the end. So that just felt like it was manipulated to help the reader understand it, even though you don't understand what's going on anyways. And it just felt fake. So I think the book's an absolute failure from a thematic and story standpoint. But as an object to own, I think it's really worth it. As an object, it should go down in history as one of the most impressively produced books of all time. I think it really opens the door for what books could be and why you would justify owning a physical object and not a digital copy of a book. But it needs someone else. It needs someone else to take these ideas and make it worth reading, because J.J. Abrams ain't the dude. He's got great ideas, but everything I've ever encountered from him is just like, if I create enough of a mess, people are going to assume I'm smart. And apologies if Doug Dorst is a real dude, but it was a boring book. But amazing production. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.